Hey there everyone, CPO here, and in this video, I'm going to be installing the Bumper Bro from BerleyPro on my Hobie Lynx kayak. This is a keel guard, which should protect my kayak keel from excessive damage, particularly when beaching on very shell-laden beaches, which I tend to do a lot. And also just when it's laying on the concrete, it should protect that keel. Now I'm gonna warn you, I did this and then I wasn't happy with it, so then I redid it. So you're gonna see two installs on this, and I want you to learn from my mistake. So the first thing I did is I figured out where the placement I thought should go based on how the Bumper Bro fit my kayak. Like there was a place where it sort of naturally aligned given the curvature of the kayak and the curvature of the product. It's also the same place I see everybody else installing this keel guard. So it just made sense, like logically, okay, let's just put it where it fits the best and where everybody else installs it. But like I said, I ended up changing it, and I'll show you why, and I'll go through that here in a little bit. I kind of feel bad, like it's a mistake on my part. I should have done it differently the first time. It's not a matter of right versus wrong. It's just preference, and I wish I did it differently the first time. But I didn't. So learn from my mistake. Alcohol to clean both the surface of the kayak and the Bumper Bro. And then I'm using Goop Marine adhesive. It's UV resistant. It really is the recommended product for this application. So I have a brand new tube here. What I'm going to do is just run a bead right down the middle of the keel on the kayak, trying to leave a little bit of space on the edges. So I have the blue tape marking where the edge of the keel guard is going to go. So I try to leave a little bit of space. I will warn you, this adhesive did run a little bit, so I had to do a little bit of touch up just to keep it from running away on me thanks to gravity. I mean, it wasn't really that big of a deal. So I put the bead down the keel, and then around the edges, I also put a bead of this adhesive about a ½ inch away from the edge of the Bumper Bro. And that's per the instructions that come with the product. They say 15 millimeters, which is just a little bit bigger than ½ an inch. So once I got it on both surfaces, I basically just put it in place using my blue tape as a guide for where I wanted to install it. Again, I'm going with the default position that I see everybody else install it and where the Bumper Bro fit naturally given the curvature, and it made perfect sense to me. So I'm just pressing down to get this adhesive to sort of flatten out and spread, and then using the masking tape to taper down, and yeah, then we're just going to let it cure for 24 hours. So when you tape it, I don't know that you can use too much tape. The goal is really to make sure that all of the edges are seated flush against the kayak so that you don't have any gaps or anything like that. So really, like, tape is cheap. Use as much of it as you need to get comfortable. And then
24 hours later.
So 24 hours later, I pulled the tape off and I have this beautiful Bumper Bro keel guard. The problem is I started to have some regret, because when I look at it from the side, you can see here the low spot in the keel is still unprotected. And to me, that's the part that takes the most damage as I drag it up on a beach that's full of shells and rocks or, you know, other crud. And in fact, I did have some damage, some marks there still that were not protected. So I pulled the whole thing off. And that was a pain in the butt. Got rid of all of the adhesive that had now cured. That was a pain in the butt, and I'm starting over. And you can even see on the kayak where there's like some discoloration where the adhesive previously was. The problem is where I want to put this, where it covers the low spot in the keel, it didn't naturally want to fit there. I ended up having to use a heat gun to heat the keel guard and reshape it to fit that spot. I don't know if the design of my boat's just a little bit different than the model that they used to create this product from or not, but either way, it just didn't fit perfectly. So I figured out where I wanted it, made sure I had good coverage. This time I paid attention to where I wanted to make sure I was getting coverage. Used the tape again to mark where I wanted it. and then heated it up with a heat gun and then pressed it flat against the kayak so that as it cooled, it would stay in the shape that fit my kayak. All right, so I recommend using gloves for this. It was actually quite hot, and it would have been a lot easier on me if I would have used gloves. And I just kept sort of heating and pressing until all of the edges were nice and flat, and I felt like it was shaped appropriately so that I wasn't relying 100% on adhesive to hold that thing in position. I wanted the shape of the plastic or the Kydex, I believe it's Kydex probably. I wanted the shape of that to naturally fit the shape of the kayak. So then I went through the exact same install process. I used alcohol to clean the kayak again, used it to clean the keel guard again, re-put the bead of the adhesive on the kayak, and then redid the adhesive on the keel guard, and then back to putting it into place. However, like one of the things I really wanted was to make sure that all of the edges were pressed nicely against the kayak, and right in the very front corner, which I will show you here in a second, I did notice that it still was raised just a little bit off the surface. And while I could have just taped it down and used adhesive to like glue it down, I really wanted to heat it back up and make sure that I got the Kydex shaped appropriately. So even after doing the adhesive, I did go back with the heat gun around the edges and then press and really make sure that it got molded to the right shape. And I still am missing that one corner, which you can see from this angle. I couldn't see it when I was taping this up, but I did notice it. And the way I noticed it was after I taped everything up, I would push with my fingers all of the edges of the bumper bro and look for movement. If I had movement, I knew it wasn't flush against the surface of the kayak. So after I got everything all taped down and I did that, I noticed this corner here was still sort of lifted up just a little bit. So I did, again, heat and wanted to make sure that it got molded properly. So yeah, it was a really easy job if I just put it wherever it fit naturally on my kayak, but I don't think that that was the right place. So it was worth it to me, the extra work. You can see here now I'm using a rag because I realize it's very hot to try and hold that Kydex down. And you want to hold it in place until it cools so that it keeps the shape that you push it into. Anyway, it would have been a lot easier if I just left it or did the default, but I really think in the end, this is a better fit for my kayak. And your mileage may vary. Like I said, almost everybody else puts it where I originally put it, but then I also see a lot of people using additional protection, keel protection, next to the bumper bro. And I really just wanted the bumper bro to be the only piece of protection up there. Like I really just need it for when I'm beaching or like setting it on the ground to help sort of protect the keel, which is the low spot. So in case you're keeping track, I'm about 5 inches off the nose of the bow for the front of the keel guard. So somewhere in that 4 to 5 inches I think works, but you can see here I have my finger on the edge of the bumper bro. It completely covers that low spot where before it didn't quite do that. So yep, we're back to now a 24-hour waiting period for it to fully cure, pull the tape off, and then I just double check and make sure that all the edges are flush against the kayak, which they were. And that's because I believe because A, the adhesive is really good, and B, because I did take the extra time to use the heat gun to make sure that it was molded properly. And if you don't have a heat gun, a good hair dryer would probably do just the same job. Now I did have a little bit of seepage of the adhesive, and what I used here was a plastic guitar pick. I just happened to have one handy. But ideally, a plastic razor blade would be perfect for this, or maybe even a credit card or a driver's license you could use. I wouldn't use a sharp knife to do this, but you can easily clean this up with a thin piece of plastic. And then now as you can see that it's done, that's what it looks like, 5 inches from the tip of the bow there. And then more importantly to me, is from the side, you can really see how it wraps around the low part of the keel and actually keeps the rest of the kayak off the ground when it's rested. And then whenever I beach, I'm going to beach about midway up that keel. That's where I'm going to start hitting sand and rocks and shell. And yeah, I think the bottom is well protected. So I like it this way. Your mileage may vary. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.